Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Friends, how would you react if someone confessed to your face that your partner would cheat on you right now? I would be insanely angry, and our story would start with a similar scenario. I returned home after a hard day at the office and didn't see my wife, Jane. I called out while going up the stairs, "I'm home." "I'll be down now, Tarzan." It was our little joke. We met at a costume party where I was dressed as Tarzan. We almost collided and I said, "I'm sorry, you were Tarzan." She interrupted, poking me in the chest. "I'm Jane," pointing a finger at her delicious cleavage. She laughed. It turned out that her name was really Jane, and from then on we were Tarzan and Jane. We had been married for what I thought were 5 happy years. I opened a beer, sat on the couch, and turned on the 6 o'clock news. The headlines ended as Jane walked down the stairs. My eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She was wearing my favorite LBD, hitting mid-thigh, and while the cleavage may not have been red carpet-worthy, it wasn't skimpy. I knew she was completely backless, which meant she wasn't wearing a bra, although the movement of her breasts still gave it away. She was also wearing the necklace I had given her for our anniversary just a month ago. I grabbed my phone to capture this vision for posterity, even though I didn't know what I would actually need it for. Wow, I didn't know we were dating. Let me freshen up a little and change my clothes. "By the way, where are we going?" Jane asked. "We're not going anywhere. Robert Cohen invited me to dinner and dancing tonight. I'll probably be late, so don't wait for me," I replied. Rob Cohen, who was banned from all company parties after he hooked up with too many married women. "He's not like that. He was just an uptight guy with a jealous husband who caused all the trouble," Jane defended. "Well, there's also one jealous husband here who says that I will never allow you to date him. I don't belong to you." I said, "You may not belong to me, but when we took our marriage vows, we gave ourselves to each other. It means something to me." "I thought it meant something to you too," I added. "Oh, don't be so medieval. Now it's the 21st century. No one believes in this anymore," Jane retorted. "Hey, it's a pity that you didn't tell me about this earlier so that we could get a divorce and date whoever we want." She continued. "Divorce? What else?" I asked incredulously. She threw her head back with a laugh, following her to the door. I grabbed an old friend from the closet as the Lexus pulled into the driveway. "Here comes Robert. Order yourself a pizza or something," she said, walking out the door. "Jane," I said. When she turned around, I tore her dress off, leaving her standing there in just a tight black thong and heels. She froze for a moment, then ran back into the house. I walked toward the Lexus, tapping the Louisville Slugger on my left palm, and Cohen backed up, burning rubber to speed away, nodding to my neighbors who enjoyed Jane's free show. I returned to the house, returning the bat to the closet. I grabbed a fresh beer, since the first one was already warm, and sat down again, waiting for the fireworks. I didn't have to wait long before Jane came downstairs wrapped in a robe, and she was furious. I couldn't follow her ranting and raving. As Paul Simon said, I heard words I had never heard in the Bible. I just sat there until she calmed down. "What were you thinking? What were you counting on?" I asked. "I don't know. Our lives have become so routine that we never seem to have as much fun as we used to. How is it that I'm only hearing about this now? Not to mention, the last few times I tried to get you to do something different, you were always too busy or not interested, or it was disgusting. Even if you could somehow justify cheating, why humiliate me with this attempt to publicly cuckold me?" Jane exclaimed. "Because I didn't want to lie. I thought that if I told you, it wouldn't be cheating." I replied, "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Having intimate with another person without my permission is definitely cheating. Maybe you will allow it?" She said, looking at me hopefully. "You've really lost your mind. I need to get out of here before I say or do something that one or both of us will regret," I said, grabbing the keys and jumping out of there before she could get out of her chair. I did what any other manly man would do in this situation. I went to my favorite bar to cry in my beer. "What's the matter, John?" Sam said, placing another bottle in front of me. "You look like you lost your best friend." "Perhaps you're not so far from the truth, Sam. When I came home this evening, Jane was dressed to the nines and told me that she was going to dinner with Robert Cohen from work and that I couldn't wait for her." "Of course you told her no," Sam exclaimed. "Of course I said it. What kind of fool do you take me for?" I replied, ready to wipe the grin off his face. "Just messing with you, dude. So, what happened next?" Oh, she told me all the usual nonsense about how I didn't own her, how loyalty was medieval. I take it you didn't buy it? Ding, 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 ding. I received this in one copy. Right at that moment, the idiot pulled into the driveway and Jane headed for the door. What are you saying? What did you do? I grabbed a persuasion tool from the closet, followed her, and tore off her dress right on the street. She froze for a minute, then realized that all the neighbors could see her in just a thong and ran back into the house. I went to the car with my persuader waiting in Louisville, and he took off. Looks like this is a win for you. So, what brings you to my humble establishment? The victory was short-lived. I was sipping my beer when she came downstairs pouting like a bear. When she calmed down a little, she started talking nonsense again. Our intimate life was routine. It wouldn't be cheating if she didn't do it behind my back, if I gave her permission. Sam was speechless. That's when I had to get out of there, and here I am. Sam opened a couple more cold bottles. We clinked glasses and drank. I had another drink before deciding that I had better stop rather than risk getting into an accident. Good night and good luck, John. Thanks, Sam. I think I'll need this. When I returned home, Jane was already in bed. I completed my evening routine, pulled on my pajama pants, and got into bed with my back to Jane. As I fell asleep, I thought I heard her quiet sobs, but I ignored them. When I came downstairs, Jane was already up and preparing breakfast. Breakfast passed quietly until we finished cleaning and Jane started again. John, why don't you see the times have changed? No one expects to be with just one person their entire life. Well, I don't think I'm alone. As for being with one person your whole life, neither of us were virgins. We dated others, you know. That's not what I mean. We were still just children then. We barely understood what was going where. Now we have more experience, more opportunities for comparison. I don't need to compare anything. I compared a lot before I asked you to marry me. And I asked you because I knew you were the one I wanted to spend my life with. When you said yes, you said you felt the same way. Did you lie? No, but But what? Have you changed your mind? If so, then maybe we should get a divorce. I don't want a divorce. Well, you can't have it both ways. If you don't want a divorce, then you will have to forget this stupidity. Lowering her eyes, she said, I don't want a divorce. So, it's decided, I said, although I wasn't sure about it. Although Jane claimed that she had given up the idea of another man, I found it difficult to believe her. I worried every time she arrived later than expected, especially if she didn't call back on time. I assumed that she might still want to take a lover, but this time behind my back, and began to try to test her. Oh, I didn't hire a private investigator or bug her phone or GPS her car. I just started stopping by for lunch on random days, calling her at unexpected times. I could feel the tension building between us, and I'm sure she felt it too. It even affected our lovemaking. It was less spontaneous, more cautious, without the passion that was there before all this started. Finally, I lost my mind. Jane, I want a divorce, I said. She was stunned. But I thought we were okay, really? Do you think that everything is fine with us, that we are somewhere close to where we were before when everything was fine with us? She lowered her eyes and shook her head. Telling my parents was the hardest thing. They couldn't understand why we couldn't work things out. When my father-in-law cornered me one day, I showed him a photo of her half-dressed, and he backed down. We faced a lot of questions from the family. I let the wine flow over me to spare Jane the embarrassment. But in the end, I had to show everyone the photo and tell everyone what she was trying to do. Having received the full package from her family, she came to me in search of sympathy. John, is there really nothing I can do to change your mind about divorce? I put my hand to my chin and thought. I came up with an idea that she would never agree with. Okay, Jane, I won't stop the divorce, but I will postpone it on one condition. Her mood improved significantly. Anything, John, anything. Be careful when you say that. Anything is a lot. I'm not worried, she said. I'm sure you won't go crazy. What is this condition? I'll let you date other men as long as I can date other women. I was sure I saw her grin before she hid behind a sickly sweet smile. Of course, John, that's fair. What, I bet she didn't think I could find another woman. There's something else, I said. What? You can't date until I make an appointment. She seemed excited. I knew she had a guy in mind and thought she was worried about what would happen if I didn't find anyone. I decided to throw her a bone. If I can't find a date in 2 weeks, you can go on your date. This brought on one of the brightest smiles I've seen from her in weeks, and she threw her arms around my neck and kissed me. That's great, John, thank you. You'll see, this will be just the thing to revitalize our marriage. Yes, it will revive him or flush him down the toilet within a few days. She was shocked when I told her I had a date and suggested we go on a double date the following day. She probably thought I was bluffing and that she would have a date while I sat at home all alone. Without Jane's knowledge, I had arranged a date that I hoped would put an end to this nonsense once and for all. On Monday, I took a long lunch to buy new clothes and left them in the car. On Friday, I left work early so I could get my hair done and get home before Jane. I snuck into the guest room with my new clothes and was in the shower when I heard the garage door open. I shaved and brushed my teeth and went to the bedroom to finish getting ready. I think I surprised her when I came out of the guest room wearing a new outfit and a new hairstyle, but she quickly came to her senses. Robert will pick me up at 6:30. It's okay, we booked a table with Amelia for 7. It's under my name in case you get there before us, I said as I walked out the door. What Jane didn't know was that we had a new employee at work, Candid DeSantis. Candid was a red-haired bombshell who made every red-blooded American man turn his head whenever she passed by. She was completely professional and never gave the office gossip anything to whisper about. We struck up a casual friendship, and when she flirted with me from time to time, I would politely show her my wedding ring. Needless to say, she was curious when I asked her to have drinks with me after work. I got to the bar before she did and was staring into my glass when she entered. So, John, what happened to break the last Boy Scout of America out of his shell? She said with a laugh. One look into my sad eyes brought her out of her teasing mood. Oh, John, I'm so sorry, she said, placing a warm hand on top of mine. I didn't mean to tease you, but you're usually so straightforward. You look like you've lost your best friend. My eyes began to water and I turned away. She put her arm around my shoulders and led me to a table, and I took my drink. She sat patiently while I gathered my courage and told her my sad story. Well, she said, there's only one thing we can do. Yes, we are. I'll be your date. I laughed for the first time since Jane came up with this crazy idea. Why are you laughing? I'm serious, she said. I looked into her eyes for a few moments, expecting a loud gotcha, which never came. Finally, I realized that she was serious. Why me? I asked. I know you don't date married men. Heck, you hardly mess with single men either if they thought they had half a chance. Every straight guy and half the gay guys in the office would be lining up to date you. I'm not just looking for a date like you say. I can date any guy I want. I really like you. Maybe because you don't always undress me with your eyes. Yes, I said, not always. I know you do it sometimes. You'd have to be dead to never do it. But you always treat me with respect when we meet. You listen to my ideas, support me when other guys try to dismiss them because they come from me. More importantly, I like you and I'm angry at your wife for treating you so disrespectfully. So, are we on a date or not? I may have been born at night, but not last night. You're in. I finished off the rest of my drink and walked Candid to her car. She gave me her number, gave me a friendly hug, and left. I thought my life would become very interesting. When I pulled up to Candid's house, I barely had time to get out and open the door before she got to the car. She was a little taller than Jane, but still shorter than me. Unlike Jane's LBD on her ill-fated date, Candid's dress was slightly longer than the knee but tight with a slit on the left side almost to the thigh. It was an emerald green color that set off her wavy bright red hair that reached down to her mid-waist. It showed more cleavage than I'd ever seen on Jane, and Candid almost slipped when I helped her into the car. As I sat in the driver's seat, I was treated to a creamy white thigh before she straightened her dress, giving me a big smile. We'll have plenty of time for that later, she said. I had to straighten myself out before driving, feeling awkward from her guttural laugh as if I wasn't feeling shy enough. She started rubbing my thigh. Luckily, we arrived at the restaurant before things got too far, and I was in control. As we entered the restaurant, Jane and Robert were already there. I saw Robert several times, and his appearance that evening made no more impression on me than the other times I saw him. Jane, on the other hand, lost her temper, and I can't remember ever seeing her this hot. Robert didn't get up, so I didn't extend my hand to him but only nodded to Jane, helping Candid sit up. Jane was obviously amazed that I had such a great date. I think she was going to make some snarky remark but changed her mind. Robert, on the other hand, couldn't take his eyes off Candid's cleavage, and Jane had to elbow him in the ribs to make sure his eyes weren't wandering. I thought dinner might be awkward, but after a hesitant start, a casual observer would have thought we were just two normal couples rather than husband and wife with different partners. After dinner, we went to a club to drink and dance. When the dancing was fast, there were no special problems, but when the slow dance began and Candid pressed herself against me, Jane's look could kill. Jane started rubbing herself against Robert. It looked like she was trying to sleep with him on the dance floor. She was attracting attention that under normal circumstances would have embarrassed her, but she was in her own little world. When Robert's hand reached under her dress to caress her breasts, I felt embarrassed for her and took Candid back to the table. We continued to watch Jane and Robert put on a show until finally the manager came over and tapped them on the shoulder. Although I obviously couldn't hear what they were saying, they were apparently asked to leave. As Jane ran to the table in tears, grabbed her cape, and left the club with Robert quickly following on her heels. "Well, you certainly know how to have a good time with a girl," Candid said, giggling. I could only laugh, and we went back to the dance floor. When we were ready to leave, I approached the manager. "I would like to apologize for our companions," I said. "Don't think about it. There are no complaints, sir. You see, it was my wife, or should I say soon-to-be ex-wife, and I think she was a little jealous of my date," I explained. The manager was a little puzzled, then looked Candid up and down. "I understand, sir," he said with a smile. "Please come anytime," he said, returning to his duties. I took Candid to her apartment and walked her to the door. When I leaned in to give her a friendly goodnight kiss, she surprised me by pulling me towards her for a passionate kiss. "Would you like to come in for a nightcap?" she asked. Somehow, I got the feeling she had more on her mind than just a nightcap, but who am I to argue? I spent the night with Candid. We showered separately, and while she finished, I made her breakfast. "Wow," she said, "he's a great lover, and he also cooks. I can just keep you, can't I?" "I'd better be careful about this," I said when we sat down at the table. "I really like you, and last night was absolutely the best intimate I've ever had in my life. But I need to work out the problems in my marriage, and even if we get divorced, I don't know how soon I'll be ready for other relationships." "Don't worry, John. I was just teasing you. Don't get me wrong, I like you too, and if things work out, I could certainly see us in a relationship. But you're right, first you must settle things with your wife." We finished eating, just chatting about nonsense, until I decided I should go home and see if anything could be salvaged from our marriage. I walked in to find Jane sitting at the kitchen table, clutching a coffee cup. She looked at me with red eyes from tears. One look at my contented face caused her to burst into tears. I took a cup of coffee and sat down opposite her. "So, how was your night with Robert?" "Oh, John, it was terrible. All I could think about was you and Candid. She is so beautiful. I know I will never be able to compete with her." "Do you realize that you wouldn't have to worry about competition if you hadn't started this stupid thing?" She couldn't meet my gaze, but she nodded in agreement. "I think I can say with confidence that you wouldn't feel so much regret if it was just you and Robert and I left sitting at home alone." She raised her eyes, filled with tears, then lowered them and nodded again. "I just don't know what to do. Part of me wants to just kick you to the curb and start over with someone new." Jane was now openly sobbing. I'm sure she was thinking about me and Candid. "Then I look at you and see the woman I married, the woman I fell in love with. What I see is not an evil, but a stupid girl, and I hope that there is a way back for us." Jane looked up, hope shining through her tears. "I'm going to change my clothes and go out for a while. While I'm gone, I think you should move your things to the guest room. When I return, we will talk again. Please, don't make me move, John. How can we be together again if we are apart? I need you now more than ever." "You don't understand what's the matter. It's not a fact that we will be together again. Maybe you should have thought about how much you needed me before you started this," I said before going up to our bedroom. Jane was sitting at the table when I went downstairs and headed for the door. "John," she said, and I turned around. "I love you." I simply nodded and left the house. I know it sounds cold, but I needed her to feel how shaky our marriage was. I walked down to the Charles River and strolled along the shore, watching the rowers in their boats and the sailboats dancing on the water. I sat on a bench and came across several families with small children. I felt sad, wondering if I would ever see the children Jane and I were talking about. I don't know how long I sat there, but as the sun set, I began to shiver. Taking a deep breath, I rose to my feet and trudged home. When I entered the house, Jane was still sitting where I had left her. She looked at me hopefully, but I just shook my head sadly, went up to my room and locked the door. I kicked off my shoes and stretched out on the bed fully dressed, covering my eyes with my hand. I don't know how long. I lay there before I heard a soft knock on the door and a whisper, "John." I didn't answer, and after the second attempt, I heard her walk down the hallway into the guest room. After making sure she had gone to bed, I quickly took a shower and fell into a restless sleep. When I went downstairs, I found that Jane had prepared a large breakfast, and to my surprise, I had a good appetite. Although Jane was just picking at her food, "John," she said, "do you think we could try seeing a psychologist? Counseling?" I went over it in my mind. I really didn't know much about counseling. Will they try to get me to agree with Jane's stupidity? If they try to do this, I can just run away. Did I want to work things out? One of the things I learned from my night with Candid was that our intimate life had become boring and routine. Do I really want to go back to this? I was still angry that Jane never came to me with complaints. I decided that I had enough love in my heart for Jane for now, and I didn't want to give up without a fight. "Okay, Jane, let's try consulting." She almost jumped out of her chair. "Let's get one thing straight right now," I said. "I don't need a counselor who wants to save our marriage. Maybe it can be saved, maybe not. I will not tolerate any hidden agendas." I could tell she was disappointed. She must have been hoping for some new age hippie psychoanalyst who would agree with her times have changed philosophy, but she had no choice but to agree. The consultation was surprisingly effective. Jane had to see how her refusal to work with me actually affected her dissatisfaction with our intimate life, and I realized that I needed to be more assertive. We talked more about what we wanted, what we needed, what we expected from our intimate life. Although counseling helped us work through many of our issues, I was still fixated on her betrayal even if I didn't let her complete it. For her part, Jane could not overcome her insecurities revolving around Candid. No matter how much I explained that although I had some feelings for Candid, I was not in love with her and our date was just a rebound shot, she simply did not take it. In the end, we decided to get an amicable divorce. Once the divorce was final, I took stock of my life. No, I did not immediately contact Candid. Instead, I booked a bed and breakfast on the Maine coast. It was pristine, so the weather was iffy, but it suited my mood. I just wanted to relax and do some soul-searching and decide where I wanted to go. When I returned, I called Candid. We went to dinner, and I let her take me to bed, but it was more for comfort than passion. The next morning, as we lay in bed, she said, "Penny for your thoughts, John. I was thinking about how easy it would be to just pick you up and ask you to do this forever. And the easy way is not always the best. Yes, we have a real connection," she smiled slightly at me. "Get your thoughts out of the gutter. I don't just mean intimate, pervert. I really like you and I know that I could easily fall in love with you, but I don't know if that would be fair to both of us. My divorce is still very fresh and undigested, and I'm worried it might cause a rebound. I think it would be better if we both saw others for a while as well as each other. I don't know how long this can last, and I won't ask you to wait for me to come to my senses." "I would like to argue with you, but I'm afraid you're right," she said. "Although I do think we should succeed, it's probably better to be sure than to be sorry." We got out of bed, used the bathroom, showered separately, and then had a quiet breakfast. I was tempted to throw caution to the wind and forget about meeting others, and I think Candid would have agreed, but I was determined. We finished cleaning. She walked me to the door, and we hugged each other with tears in our eyes. "I think this is goodbye," she said. "No, I don't agree. Why don't we meet for dinner, say 2 weeks from Friday, just to check in on how things are going?" "Okay," she said, kissed me on the cheek, and led me out the door. The sound of the door closing sounded like a cell door, and I wasn't sure I hadn't made the worst mistake of my life. I spent the rest of the week questioning my sanity. On Friday, I decided to join some friends for dinner and drinks. We sat in a corner booth at the back of the restaurant. I was facing the door. We were just finishing dessert when I saw her come in. Candid was with a tall, handsome guy. Who am I kidding? Of course, he was tall and handsome. I was torn about whether or not I should come over and say hello, but I decided that it wouldn't be in keeping with our breakup. I was disappointed at how quickly she seemed to replace me. I guess you can call me a coward because I waited until she went to the toilet before throwing some cash on the table and quickly saying goodnight to my friends. I was angry at her for not waiting long to get back into the game, and I was even more angry at myself. It was something we both agreed to. One thing was for sure, I was going to have a date. I flattered myself that I'm a pretty good catch, and I had no problem getting a date for next Friday night. Her name was Cheryl Thompson. She worked as a secretary for one of my clients, and we had exchanged innocent flirtations in the past. She knew I was married, but she readily agreed when I made it clear that I was divorced. I always thought Cheryl was business hot, but I wasn't prepared for the vision that greeted me at her door, and I think my surprise was evident. "I think I'm pretty well prepared," she said. "That's putting it mildly. Do you look like you're ready to go?" "Yes, just let me put on my cloak." I helped her throw the cloak over her shoulders and we set off. Dinner was the usual first date chatter except for the talk about my divorce. She was shocked by Jane's actions. I decided to lay my cards on the table over coffee and dessert. "Cheryl, I don't want to deceive you. In the lead up to my divorce, I got involved with a woman, and after my divorce, we got pretty serious. We were both concerned about how quickly we were moving and the risks of getting back into the relationship and decided that we should date other people for a while. I don't want you to think that I'm just using you as a placeholder or something. I'm completely open to what might happen wherever that may lead." There was a charming ring to her, I said. "John, this is just our first date. I don't expect any commitment, but I appreciate your honesty. Like you said, let's just play it by ear and see where it goes." With this awkwardness over with, we went on a very pleasant date, which ended with a warm kiss on the lips and a date for the following Saturday. Meanwhile, I had a dinner date with Candid on Friday, and I had no idea how it was going to go. I took her hands, and she was as beautiful as always. We chatted casually on the way to the restaurant, but as soon as we gave our orders to the waiter, she became serious. "You know, I saw you," she said. I just raised my eyebrows. "I was at dinner and saw you with your friends. I was going to come over and say hello, but when I came out of the toilet, you were no longer there. I was a little embarrassed. I know we agreed that we would date other people, but seeing you with another man so soon. Well, I guess I was a little jealous. Stupid, I know, but John, you had no reason to be jealous. Stefan was an old friend of mine whom I hadn't seen for a long time, and when he called, I took advantage of our break to accept his invitation to dinner. Sorry if this upset you. No need to apologize. Any upset was in my own head. In fact, it inspired me to get off my ass and ask someone out. We had dinner last week. Now it was her turn to raise her eyebrows. Should I be jealous?" she asked with a smile. "Oh, I don't think so. Although we have another date for tomorrow night, we both agree that there is no commitment, just two people getting together to have a good time." "That's nice," she said with a wistful smile. "You deserve to have a good time." We were saved from further awkward conversations by the arrival of our dinners, and the conversation turned to more pleasant topics. "Do you want to go dancing?" I asked, holding the car door for her. "No, I think it would be better if you took me home." She drove home quietly, looking out the window. We walked up to her door, kissed, maybe with a little more fervor than we intended, and gently pushed away from each other. "Please stay in touch, John. I will do so." "Good night, Candid," I said and quickly retreated to my car before trying to get her inside. My date with Cheryl went well, and our goodnight kiss was more heated with some petting, but we still broke up before things went too far. Although I spoke with Candid every week or so, our paths never crossed. I don't know whether we subconsciously avoided each other or whether it was just fate. I saw Cheryl a few more times and we actually ended up in bed, and it was fun, but there was no spark there. As we lay in bed after our third night's sleep, Cheryl dropped a bombshell on me. "John, I think this should be the last time." "What?" "I thought we were fine." "Oh, that's right, maybe even too good. Now your words make no sense, John. When we started, we said no commitment, and I said I'm not looking for any commitment. I didn't have them and don't have them, but I'm developing feelings for you, and if we continue, I think we might go places I'm just not ready to go. I'd rather hurt you now before the feelings get too deep than later when it really hurts you. I hope this makes sense. In a strange way, this is so. I can't say it doesn't hurt, but I'll get through it." I got dressed, kissed her forehead, and headed to the door. "Good night, Cheryl." "Goodbye, John," she said with a sad smile, tears sparkling in her eyes, closing the door. I contemplated my next move. My next step was a series of women. Some of them were one-night stands, some were many relationships, although none of them were serious. Finally, I realized what was missing in my life and picked up the phone. "Hello," she said. "Candid, it's me, John," I said, completely forgetting that she had caller ID. "Candid, I don't know how you are doing, but I don't worry about selections anymore. I had more rebounds than in pinballs, and I'm on the rise. If I can still be with you, I want to go home. There was silence on the other end of the line, and I was afraid that I had missed my chance. How soon can you come? Jane did not leave town in disgrace and lived a lonely life surrounded by her cats. She certainly wasn't looking for work in a Mexican brothel. While I wasn't really interested in knowing, mutual friends told me she was dating, although there didn't seem to be anyone she was seriously dating. Candid wanted to invite Jane to the wedding, although I wasn't sure it was such a good idea. I didn't mind, but Jane refused, sending a nice gift. I was surprised when Candid struck up a casual friendship with Jane, meeting occasionally for coffee or shopping. It didn't bother me, although of course it was unusual. About 6 months after we got married, I returned home to find Candid dressed to go out. Oh, I thought, here we are again. Fortunately, my fears turned out to be unfounded. Go change, we're meeting Jane at Amelia's for dinner. Look, I know you two have gotten pretty friendly, but don't you think this is a little over the top? Don't worry, dear, there is a method to my madness. I knew I couldn't argue with her when she had an idea in her head, so I just shrugged and went to change. Jane was already waiting in place, and calling the situation awkward would be an understatement. Candid and Jane greeted each other with kisses on the cheek, as all women do, while I just stood there feeling awkward. Neither of us seemed to know what to do. Then Jane spoke. John, good to see you. You look good. Thank you, Jane. You look good too. We were spared even more awkwardness by being shown to our table. Candid paused for a moment, saying something to the man behind the counter. What does all of this mean? I asked when she caught up with us. You don't have to worry about it, honey, she said. Now, every husband knows that when his wife says nothing, it means something and he should be concerned. But again, there was nothing I could do except play along and hope for the best. Jane sat to my right and Candid opposite, and before we could order drinks, the owner came up with Stefan. Candid stood up, gave him a friendly hug, and seated him on my left, opposite Jane, and her insidious plan became obvious. While I was relieved that my worst fears had been unfounded, the evening did have the makings of a disaster. Luckily, Jane and Stefan seemed to get along. Conversation flowed smoothly throughout dinner, and by all accounts, we were like 4 old friends. All too soon, it seemed it was time to leave. Stefan and I split the check, and while Candid and I were leaving, Jane and Stefan decided to continue the evening at the restaurant bar. Candid was so self-confident, but I couldn't be angry. While it may not last long, they're clearly off to a good start. We maintained cordial if distant relationships with Jane and Stefan. We rarely communicated as couples, although we often met in groups. Apparently, they have a stable relationship. Jane no longer seems to need to spice it up. We wish them all the best. Candid and I couldn't be happier, though kicking the baby really wakes her up at night. I think the main character is too bland and has no inner character, but that's just my opinion. What do you think? Now let's move on to the second short story of Bloody Revenge. My childhood was not easy. The mother passed away early. I almost didn't remember her. I peered at the photographs with her, only vague pictures of the past flashed in my memory. I was still very young when she passed away. I spent all my childhood with my father. My father was not bad, but he worked a lot, was constantly on the road, so I did not see him often. He brought me gifts, tried to give me time, took care of me, but basically I spent my childhood with my grandparents. No matter how hard his father tried, he could not earn much. We didn't live in poverty, but we didn't get rich either. I never asked for more. It was a great happiness for me just to be with my father together. Studying was tight. There was no money for an expensive university. As a child, I dreamed of becoming a doctor. But life has prepared a completely different path for me. From a young age, I tried to earn money. When my peers were still sitting on their parents' necks, I was already earning my first money. I also had a passion for big cars, so it's not surprising that I became a truck driver. For me personally, it was good money, enough to live on, and it turned out to save something. I never sat still. I spent most of my time on the road. But when I returned home, I liked to have a good rest with my friends. We used to meet at our favorite bar, and by late afternoon we would finish our fun at Danny's, my friend's house. Danny had a large country house that his parents built. There was a lot of space here, and you could have a great time. Jack, aren't you tired of driving for days? Danny asked me. Danny, to be honest, no. I love my job. I visit various countries. I am attracted by the road. There is something in this, I tell you for sure. I answered. Friend, in my opinion, you are just looking for an excuse for the fact that you were used to this work and do not want to change anything. Danny joked. No, Danny, you don't understand. I would never trade my job for a boring office routine. Fine, fine. I'd love to believe you, but you don't have a girlfriend. Why don't you meet anyone? Man, time goes by and you're still alone. Yes, Danny, do not put pressure on the patient. I would like to, of course, but so far there is no one in mind. Come on, but what about Stacy? This bartender definitely has her eye on you. And yes, she's pretty cute. Danny, I'm sorry, of course, but she's not my type. Look at him. So you won't find anyone. There was truth in Danny's words. I haven't met anyone for a long time, but I did not want to connect my life with just anyone. Somehow after regular gatherings, I returned home. That evening I remained sober, there was no desire drinking. So I took my drunken friends home and I was already returning home. Then it rained heavily. Suddenly, on the side of the road, I noticed a car with flashing lights. I stopped and saw a completely wet girl who was trying to fix the car. Good evening. Can I help you? I answered as I opened the window. Young man, yes, I already thought that no one would pass here until morning. The girl answered excitedly. What happened to you? The car stalled. While I was trying to figure it out in the rain, my phone got wet. I can't even call a tow truck. I looked under the hood and saw that the thermostat was covered. All the antifreeze had flowed out. Girl, I have to disappoint you. You can't fix it that easily. But don't worry, I'll call a tow truck. If you want, I can give you a lift. Young man, I would be very grateful to you. The car was loaded by a tow truck and taken to a car service. I took the wet girl through. We met. Her name was Jessica. We chatted on the way to her house. She was very sweet and quite pretty. Then we agreed to meet again. We liked each other and ended up dating. And it's been 15 years since we got married. Life together was not as fun as it was in the first time when we just met. But I was still madly in love with Jessica. I still transported goods to various countries, so I did not have the opportunity to return home from work every day as in many other families. But on the other hand, the time we spent together was very fulfilling. It was passionate lovemaking, fun parties, and romantic evenings. I was happy. Now I had a great desire to quickly return home where my Jessica was waiting for me. But lately our relationship has deteriorated. Jessica started pushing me more and more. Jack, you've been on the road for so long and your salary is not growing. I'm not saying that you make bad money, but we don't have enough for a lot. Jessica said, puzzled. Darling, what are you doing? I plow for days and earn much more than my colleagues. Jack, I have been wanting to change my car for a long time. We wanted to buy a new house, but your earnings are not enough for this. But Jessica, everything suited you before. We are not per people. That was earlier. You were stuck in the same place. Jessica, I have, of course, plans for the future. But that won't happen today. We must be patient. Are you talking about your dreams again? Open your own shipping company and stuff like that? I'm tired of hearing this. Darling, these are not just words, I try. Listen, I have a friend named Mike. Do you remember? Is that the nasty guy? He's not mean. Mike is a promising businessman. And I already agreed with him that you will come for an interview. What the hell, Jessica? I didn't ask you for this. I love my place of work too. You didn't even consult me. I answered angrily. Jack, just go and talk to Mike. I'm trying for us. You will earn much more. Jessica, you can't. Honey, I beg you very much, please do this for me. Jessica very persistently persuaded me for a long time. In the end, I gave in and got a job with Mike. I really didn't like this guy. He was obviously hiding something. I delivered goods from another country. But this work was very strange. Mike paid good money so I wouldn't ask too many questions. I didn't even know what kind of cargo I was carrying. According to the documents, it was consumer electronics. The goods were loaded and unloaded without my presence. Warehouses were very secretive. They didn't let me in. They drove out of the warehouse and only then let me drive. Such trips alarmed me more and more, but Jessica's behavior seemed no less suspicious. She was changing before our eyes. Jack, have you seen Mike for a long time? Jessica asked. Yes, I just came from him, but what? I asked anxiously. He just called me, said he couldn't get through to you. You need to go on an urgent flight again. What the hell? I just got back. I don't know, Jack, but it's urgent. Call him back. I was furious. Such a schedule clearly did not suit me. Hello, Mike? Do I need to fly again? Yes, Jack, I'm sorry, but this is an urgent delivery. The other driver can't. You have to go. Jack, I understand everything, but please help me out. Listen, I of course understand everything, but this kind of work does not suit me. I will go on this flight, but if this continues, then I will quit. Jessica and I hadn't spent time alone in a long time, and now she meekly sent me to work on. It was very strange. I felt that I was in a suspicious and incomprehensible situation. My car was loaded and I could drive, but I was already on the edge, so I didn't hit the road right away. I called my friend Danny. We agreed to meet at his country house where I could easily park my truck. And the next day, I just would have been on the road longer so as not to stray from the schedule. Jack, tell me what's going on. You're not yourself. Danny asked me anxiously. Yes, my friend, some kind of devilry is happening. Jessica started acting weird in this new job. There is clearly something wrong here. I answered. What are you transporting? Hell knows. According to the documents, household appliances. Well, let's check it out. No, Danny, don't you dare. Everything is sealed there. Don't worry. We will restore, if anything. Nobody will notice. Danny rushed to the car. Before I could stop him, he broke the seals and opened the back door of the truck. Danny, what the hell? What have you done? Do not panic. Let's watch. So, what do we have here? Danny took out the microwave box, unpacked it, got out the appliances. Inside was a bag of white powder. What is it, drugs? Danny asked worriedly. I have no idea. I answered with a dumbfounded look. So, don't panic, I have a good friend from the police, he will help us. Danny's friend's name was Jim, and I only knew him visually. We contacted him the same evening. He confirmed that it was a narcotic composition. My hair stood on end at this news. I talked to Jim and told him everything about who I work for. Jim was far from the last person in his department and contacted the right people. Pretty soon, I learned that Mike was a drug dealer who had been under surveillance for a long time. But it was not possible to catch this bastard hot. I was introduced into a special operation, told to take the goods to their destination and continue to carry myself as before without arousing suspicion. I took the goods and returned home. Jessica, son, I'm back. Jack, dear, how glad I am to see you. Jessica hugged me with a fake smile. How glad I am to see you. It's going to be our wedding anniversary soon. Jessica, listen, our wedding anniversary is coming soon. I would not like to celebrate noisily. Let's sit at home. And yes, I am not often at home. I understand that this holiday is for the two of us, but I would like to invite Mike as well. Jack, you amaze me. Are you serious? I don't mind. Yes, quite seriously. Mike has become much closer to us lately. Let's invite him. Wonderful. Jack, well, then I'll call him myself and invite him. Jessica replied with a smile. Just a day before our anniversary, Jessica said she wanted to visit her mother in the hospital. I did not believe a single word she said and decided to follow her. I discreetly followed Jessica and we stopped in front of a house. It was clearly not a hospital. The lights were on the second floor. I managed to sneak up onto the balcony on the second floor where I saw Jessica and Mike. The door to the balcony was ajar. I took out my phone, turned on the video, and quietly slipped the phone into the room. Jessica, I've been waiting for you, Mike said with a smile. Mike, I hustled as hard as I could. What about your husband? Just behaving like a donkey and doesn't suspect anything? Where is he? He even invited you to our wedding anniversary. What's that about? Well, yes, it's unexpected, but nice. Never mind, we'll soon make your husband a scapegoat, and we ourselves will leave for Mexico with a lot of money. Yes, I wish it would happen faster. I'm already pretty tired of pretending to be a faithful wife. I was shocked by such a conversation but kept filming. Mike didn't hold back in his expressions. He detailed his schemes, and all of it was clearly visible and audible on the video I shot. After this candid speech, I witnessed my wife starting to sleep with Mike right before my eyes. Rage clouded my mind, but I gathered all my strength to restrain myself. I decided to enact my revenge more cunningly. I controlled myself and calmly left the house. I felt a heavy burden on my soul, but the thought of revenge gave me hope. Following Mike was difficult. He never stayed in one place for long and constantly changed his residence. Soon, he was supposed to leave, but I couldn't let him go that easily. Then came the anniversary of our wedding. We sat at the table, the three of us. Guys, before we start celebrating, I'd like to show you a touching video. Mike, I promise you'll like it too. Then the video of their sleep, which I had filmed, appeared on the big screen. What? What is this? Jessica exclaimed. Look at you, pathetic creature. I yelled. Mike, sorry, I'll fast forward. This will be more interesting for you than watching you sleep with my wife. I said. I fast forwarded to the moment when Mike was talking about all his schemes. Oh, you scoundrel! Mike yelled, rushing towards me. Wait, you bastard! I yelled and hit Mike in the face with an iron pipe previously hidden in my sleeve. Bon appetit, freak? Like the taste of metal? Not too hard? I asked sarcastically. And you cheap whore clearly got something wrong in this life. The only thing I regret is not seeing right away what a lying parasite you are. I said to Jessica with disgust. At that moment, the police burst into the house. Shortly before our meeting, I told Jim that Mike was coming over and sent him the video I had shot. Now, this scoundrel could be confidently arrested. I was acquitted thanks to my assistance to the investigation. But Jessica was so unlucky she was convicted of complicity with Mike in these dirty deeds. So they are now behind bars and for a very long time. Nevertheless, I opened my own company and my business began to develop rapidly, which helped me to throw this unnecessary load of many years of lies out of my life. Thanks for sticking with us and supporting this channel. Until new videos.